Hello, everyone. I am so excited you're joining me for this week's money chat. Um, so drop a hello in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm so excited. Last week we took a break from our money chats because I was traveling. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding. But this is exactly why we start our businesses, so that we can have greater time freedom, financial freedom, and independence, and be able to develop the lives of our dreams and what we really want to be doing. So this week, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eleanor Prisco, and I work as a money and mindset coach. And I really am all about helping you develop your deepest financial empowerment through feminine finance methodology. And the feminine finance methodology is one which I developed and I teach, and there are core pillars to it. There are strategies to it. There are ways to shift your mindset around financial management and money. And it's just something that brings me so much joy and pleasure. And what I've really been, what has been coming up over the past, kind of couple weeks in my communities and in my spaces is this feeling around, how do I want to frame this? Around being in a state of enoughness and thinking about, like when you're in a state of enough, but you also want more, and kind of how to navigate those dynamics. So I want to talk a little bit about that, of like, number one, having enough and like still wanting more, and how to navigate those feelings, and whatever else might bubble up, right? So one of the things that I think is so interesting when it comes to having enough and then wanting more, I think one of the best strategies that you can do, and one of the best strategies that can really transform you being able to achieve, the financial desires that you have, is to actually give a place for that money to go, right? So a lot of times when like we have enough and then we still want to grow, we still want to expand, we still want to have more, I think something that can really bubble up for us is that we start to feel bad, or we start to feel sticky, or we start to feel uncomfortable in wanting more. So it's like, how do we get comfortable having more than enough? I think number one of the biggest things that can come up for us is a feeling of, like I'm going to feel guilty about having more than enough than others, or I'm going to feel triggering to other people, or they're going to be upset with me, or, people are going to be angry at me, or people are not going to like me for having more than enough. And I'm going to kind of become that like rich bee that like everyone hates. And so I think number one is figuring out that internal mindset that you might have around having more than enough, or having more than other people, right? And uncovering, what is that internal dialogue that's going on there? And like figuring out like, what feels so uncomfortable about that, about being, more successful or financially better off than potentially people around you, or people that pay attention to you, whether that be on social media, in your personal life, whatever it might be, right? So actually taking some time to reflect on like, why does it feel so uncomfortable to feel like having more than enough is a bad thing? Number one. And number two is asking yourself that critical question of, am I holding a belief that if I have more than enough, it means that I'm taking from someone else? Which I want to invite you into realizing, like, actually, there's more than enough for everyone. And just because you're succeeding does not mean that you're taking from someone else. And so I think that's like a really critical thing to also understand here in our mindset, and in the success of our business, and in our relationship with our money. And then when it comes to the strategy side of things, when it comes to your money, when you have more than enough and you're kind of still wanting to grow and you want more, I think the huge action here is understanding what it is that you like, where you actually want the additional funds to go, right? So this is a huge aspect of like understanding of like, oh, what is it that you want to achieve financially, right? Because as you start to build financial stability, the way that you can continue to expand the financial stability and abundance and wealth that you have is actually by having a place for the money to go, right? And this is like a critical step in, business financial management, personal financial management, is understanding that money loves to have a place to go. It like absolutely loves going to a place and having a designated space to go to. And so it's really about, oh, what is it that you want to do with that more than enough money? And understanding, oh, okay, like what is more than enough for me? And like, where is that money going to be going? Is it that you want to max out a retirement account? Is it that you want to buy bonds? Is it that you want to go into investing? Is it that you want to, suddenly be buying a van and driving around and having like van life, right? Like, where is it that this money is going? Is it going to be paying off a debt? Is it going to be into investing? Is it going to be creating leverage for yourself, right? So I think it's super, super important, or like going into an investment property, getting really clear on like one of those ways that we can make the leap to the next level of, financial stability and security is understanding, okay, where does this money gonna go, right? This additional money of like, if you have enough right now, if you have enough money, or even if you actually don't have enough money and you are just trying to get to like where you have enough money, I would encourage you to even consider like, oh, what are some small goals that you'd want to start doing? Is it having, a small savings amount? Is it being able to pay your tax bill, whatever it might be? Right. But it's like actually understanding, where is this money going to be going? Because money loves to know where it's going to go, and it loves to have a safe place to land, even if it means that it's getting spent. Right. So it's really about creating this new dynamic with money that maybe you haven't been taught before, of like, yes, uncovering your mindset and your mentality in regards to that financial success, but also the strategy of knowing where the money is going and knowing where you're going to put that money. And this is not necessarily what people talk about, right? Or they talk about it in very general terms of like, oh, have an emergency fund that is, 6 months worth of your living expenses, or have, max out your retirement and things like that. But like actually conceptualizing that, very few times do we actually see ourselves breaking that down and understanding, what does that look like as a monthly contribution? What is that actually in regards to? And so I really want to encourage you to, go ahead and reflect on like, oh, what is that amount? What are those funds? Like, what is that money that I'm going to need to be contributing to, right? Or like, what are those funds? Like, how is this money breaking down, right? Because if we look at really quickly maxing out like a general retirement fund that has a cap of like 6,500, right? Like, which I think is the cap for one of the like IRAs, it pretty much comes out to like $550 a month, right? So it's like, if you have more than enough right now and you're literally sitting on extra cash and you're trying to figure out, oh, but I want more, get clear on your financial goals. Getting clear on your financial goals and what you actually want, or what you want to achieve, whether that be having a savings, whether that be paying off a debt, whether that be maxing out a retirement for the first time in your life, like, those are some of the most important things that you could do, because by taking the time to get clear on some of your financial desires and goals and having a clear place for the money to go, the money will appear, right? The money will arrive, right? So it will become apparent in like maybe signing more clients, maybe making more sales, maybe getting a raise at work, maybe you end up spending less, right? Because you now have a clear path to redirect the funds to, rather than maybe spending on eating out or, cosmetics, or, clothing or things that weren't necessarily aligned spending. Now you can spend on all those categories every single month and have it be completely in alignment. But what I'm saying is like, sometimes we spend more in those categories in an out of alignment way because like we're searching outside of ourselves for fulfillment or happiness or anything like that, right? So I think it's really important here for us to understand like, what is it that we are trying to do when it comes to having more than enough, right? So like understanding your mentality of like those critical questions you want to ask yourself of, oh, like when I have more than enough, are people not going to like me? Am I going to be concerned about, being rejected by the people that I'm close with? Or am I concerned about, getting rejected by, getting haters online, or like having this like totally fabulous lifestyle and people believing that I didn't get it ethically, right? So like there's all these things that can come up around like you achieving the level of financial success that you want. And like when you have enough and you're trying to break through that barrier of having more than enough, and like you have enough and you want more than enough, it can feel really sticky, right? Because we're conditioned and told to be like, we should be happy with what we get and we should be happy about, just what we receive, and really leaning into like, oh, but like, what do we actually want? Like, what is it that we want to achieve, right? And so when we want more than enough, a really beautiful strategy, right, to circumvent some of those sticky feelings around mindset can be getting clear on those larger financial goals that you have when you have enough, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, like the maxing out retirement, right? Or, having a tax savings account, or buying a bond, or, investing in an investment property, or buying a new car, like whatever those things may be, right? Develop like having a savings account where you have a cushion and it feels really good, right? I think that these things are so important when we actually create definitions for where our money goes, because it gives us so much more clarity, and we start to see like, oh yeah, like there is a reason for me to want more than what I do have, right? There is a strategic place for this money to go. And actually it will be supporting me long-term financially, which a lot of times we're not paying attention to, right? We're paying attention to the here and now. We're not necessarily paying attention to, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, when you may want to lean into retirement, or you may have a kid and you might want to have a college fund already set up for them, right? So I think that those things are super, super important when we start to get clear on what we want. And I think another really fun way that we can play here, that I think the current industry doesn't really play with, which is a huge aspect of the feminine finance methodology, is leaning into the language which we're using when it comes to our finances. And this I see a lot of, like, the financial industry is one that wants it to kind of be this like boring topic, and like one that makes you feel confused and creates a lot of feelings of shame and guilt. And we don't necessarily see the playfulness of our language that's available. And of course, you'll see this with the feminine finance methodology of having money dates, right? It's like, actually go on a date with your money, have that be a pleasurable experience, put on your favorite playlists, like pick out your favorite food, like have your favorite beverage next to you, and figure out what is going to be regulating for your nervous system to actually engage with your finances and check in with them. And so I really want to encourage you here to also consider, like, is there some language change that you need to make when it comes to these next financial goals, right? Like, do financial goals not even sound good to you, right? Are these your actual financial desires? Is this your financial roadmap? Is this your financial plan, right? I know I had a client who was wanting and desiring to buy a home, and like something they actually renamed their savings account to was Home Sweet Home, right? Like they wanted a home. They wanted to save up for a home. And like they decided, oh, okay, like I'm going to create an account that's Home Sweet Home, right? I have another client who, when we were talking about an emergency fund, it felt so sticky and like gross and like, oh my gosh, I'm planning for failure, right? Like I'm planning for something to go wrong in my business. I'm planning for something to go wrong in my finances. And instead of having it be an emergencies fund, we renamed it to a quality of life fund, right? Like this is just your quality of life. Like this is just money that gets to get invested into high yield savings or maybe short-term CDs or something like that. And like it is being strategically utilized, but also like more accessible than potentially other investments, and creates a cushion for, you know, those things that come up that, you know, we can't always predict, right? And so I really want you to pay attention to what language are you using when it comes to your financial goals, and does it actually resonate with you? Does it encourage you to be playful and excited with your money? And does it get you excited about what you're wanting to, what you're financially working towards, right? Because this is the thing, you are putting in work when you develop a financial plan and when you develop and are committing to achieving financial goals. Like you are taking steps every single day to achieve those things. And that is work. That's mental work and action work, right? Whether that be transferring the funds, whether that be not purchasing something, whether that be increasing your income and putting yourself out there more, right? Like you are choosing to do active work that might look different than the standard definition of work, but like you are actively pursuing these desires and goals that you have. And so I really want to encourage you to ask yourself, oh, does this language that I'm using in my financial plan actually inspire me to get me excited and, you know, turned on and like really go for these financial goals? So I really want to encourage you to also reflect on like, what is the language that you're choosing to use when it comes to your financial goals? Because that can be like a huge aspect of, you know, a motivation factor of how you decide to show up for achieving these goals and, you know, pursuing the higher level of financial abundance that you desire, right? So I really want to encourage you to think about those things as you are in this space of like having enough, wanting more, right? There are these three things to do. It's number one, reflect on your mentality around having more than others, or maybe more than what you have had in the past, right? Think about, oh, what is that mentality? Am I feeling like, you know, I'm not allowed to have more, right? And then secondly, really considering, you know, okay, what are the financial goals I have at this next level, right? It's so important for us to understand like what are those next intentions that we're bringing our energy to, so that we can give the money a clear path to go to, right? And number three is, what's the language you're using around these goals and intentions? And, you know, is there more playful, pleasurable language that allows it to not feel, you know, as dusty and crusty as the normal financial management industry? So I really, really want to encourage you to do those three things. This has been our money chat for this week. It's been so beautiful speaking with all of you. Definitely go ahead and catch the replay. And with that, I will see you next week for our regular weekly money chat. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I definitely read them all, and I love, you know, seeing them. If you want to subscribe to go ahead and catch all of the money chats, just go ahead and give it a follow and subscribe to the channel. And if you like this video or you found these strategies helpful, go ahead and give it a like. These things are also helpful to my page and of course the algorithms and all the things. So I hope with that, you have a gorgeous rest of your day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.